Hey, how we doing, church? Pastor Brian. On September the 21st, Sunday evening, behind me is the kitchen, and the doorway to the cellar. If you hear some noise coming from that direction, there's family folding laundry and watching Duck Dynasty. What I have to say is thank you for making Sunday morning very special. We worshiped in spirit and truth, and God showed up and made himself known through the gifts of the Spirit. It was a great morning. Thank you all for participating. As you know, we're looking at Acts chapter 12, so I want to give you a few words of summary and then a few questions for you to think about. First, all that's happening in the book of Acts is this up and down, what I call the roller coaster, which is highs and then lows. So many people commented to me after church about their best roller coaster experience. Maybe start out your Connect group by talking about yours. What roller coaster were you on? Where were you in the world? How did it feel? Share some exciting amusement park stories. With that being said, the Church of Jesus Christ started out on a lot of highs and had several lows. But they always seemed just like a roller coaster to carry the momentum back up. Oh, if you see that on my arm, that's poison sumac. Anyway, what I'm going to ask you in the second question is talk about some of the highs and some of the lows in your spiritual life or in your church life. This can be from First Assembly or from church in the past, but I think it's important to realize that not all of us are at a high point at the same time. Some of us are high, some are low. Some are experiencing emotional highs, emotional lows, spiritual highs, spiritual lows. And I want this to be a time of openness and encouraging one another that wherever you're at, we can be sensitive to each other and support one another. But in the case of Acts chapter 12, and reading from the English Standard Version, the low point was that James was killed, the brother of John. Run through with the sword by King Herod and his men. And this was so exciting for King Herod because he was gaining favor. He wanted to continue the persecution, so he pulled in Peter. When you pull in the head of the church, there's an idea that if you cut off the head, everything underneath will crumble. Of course, this isn't true of the Church of Jesus Christ because the head is not Peter. The head is Jesus. But in human terms, cutting off Peter would be very significant for the advancement of the Gentile agenda or the Judeo understanding of faith versus the Christian messianic understanding of faith. With that being said, Peter's in prison, and what do the people do? They don't give up. They don't cry and wallow, but they pray, and they pray earnestly. So the third question is to talk about earnest prayer. When's a time in your life that you can recall really praying earnestly, which means praying constantly, consistently, openly, having a fervor, kind of a passion with it. And then conversely, were there times that you can contrast and say, I prayed, but it wasn't that faithful. It really wasn't that earnest. Which would lead to the fourth question, which is about the expectations. So what's so mind-blowing is that all the church were praying earnestly and even praying the very night that their prayer was answered. Peter comes out of jail, comes to their home, knocks on your Connect group door, and the very answer to your prayer is standing in front of you, but none could believe it. So the last question is talk about expectations with prayer. Let's be honest with ourselves. When we pray, do we really believe that we're going to receive what we get? And as I alluded this morning, James chapter 1, verse 6 talks about asking in faith without doubting. For anyone who doubts is like one who's tossed to and fro like the sea. So we're right back to that motion of a roller coaster. But in this case, it's not a cycle that is created or a rhythm created by God, but this is an unhealthy rocking up and down where we're saying, I really don't believe what I'm praying. I really don't want to believe. I really have little confidence, but nonetheless I'll say the prayer. And just like the ocean's going up and down and nothing is really moving forward or backward, we're just bobbing. What God is asking is, dive in. Earnestly pursue and trust that He's going to answer, and then have an expectation that He will hear and He will deliver and He will come through. Even if it looks different than what you think, and I'm sure it looked different having Peter knock on their door. Again, what's our expectation? Will God answer or will He not? So with all that being said, have a great Connect group. Enjoy some fellowship, which is a fancy word for good food and sharing real conversation. And know that we're praying for you. Thank you to all of you for participating in Connect groups. Have a great week. God bless.